Good morning, good evening, and maybe it's good afternoon for those who are watching this call. So, today we are going to have a conversation about activating courageous conversations to maximize the business impact. So, my name is Vivian Acquah, and I'm gonna mention a little interlude before I hand it over to Mary Jane. So, this episode is about us igniting a thought-provoking conversation on the power and necessity of having courageous conversation in the professional setting, right? So as experts in inclusion and empowering workplaces, we want to be able to delve into strategies that not only facilitate meaningful dialogue, but also maximize the individual impact of every organization. And who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want to impact, who doesn't want to maximize their business impact? So this conversation, it's about exploring how courageous conversation can be a catalyst for personal growth and collective success. And I am Vivian Acquah. I'm a certified diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I support companies like Heineken, LinkedIn, Indeed, and also locally, I have been supporting KLM and also so many other companies that you can look at my LinkedIn or otherwise look at my website to learn more about what I do. I think last week I just came back from Geneva, right, to support board members to facilitate, to be having brave conversation, but also talk about unconscious biases, right? That those are the things that are low hanging fruit, but yet we don't address them, we don't mitigate them, and this is what today's conversation will be about. So I'm gonna hand it over to my dear friend Mary Jane Roy.
Hello, hello. Yeah, so Vivian and I, our friendship goes back a number of years now. I'm amazed at how much time has passed when I think of when we first met, Vivian. And
Sistership,
it's
our
been,
sistership.
yes, our sistership, yes. And it's been a really an eye-opening journey for me. Vivian has really been part of that eye-opening journey. And I have my own company, Creating Waves, and my main focus has been since 2011 on areas such as stress hardiness, as I like to call it, resilience, emotional agility, trust in the workplace. These are the kinds of topics that I really have done a deep dive into, multiple certifications in many areas of this. The the journey, and I often say, and Vivian corrects me, I'm late to the DEI journey, but she said, no, you're on time. So I have to believe that. It's only been in the past few years, and part of it started with a focus on ageism, and that is both for youngerism and olderism, but also a real eye opener for me was when I first was introduced to virtual reality to mitigate unconscious biases, to bring them more, to become more aware of them. And it was such an impactful experience that I've now, in the past couple of years, with Vivian and other colleagues, facilitate a number of different organizations, teams in using VR to amplify uh, empathy and inclusion. But
Yeah.
this conversation, Vivian, if I can maybe throw the first
Yeah,
um,
you can.
uh, question out, I guess. I was always amazed when you produced, I think it was last year, it might have been the year before, this intensively, um, yeah, what would be the word I would use? It, this major effort in developing these DEI cards for teams and for individuals. And I said to Vivian, I really want to talk about this because I think we're not using them enough and they need
Hmm.
to get out there because this is such an excellent tool for each of us to use because we often don't know the questions to ask. We don't know how to start these courageous conversations around topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and unconscious biases as well, all of this. So let's dive into what these cards can bring to an organization, to a team, and to us as individuals.
Yes. And you
How did you
started
get
before.
how
Yeah.
did you get into this?
Um, I mean, doing the work for clients and also understanding that eventually the money well is running dry, right? Because they can hire me, they can hire me, they can hire me, but then again, they also need to do the work themselves. And I wanted to create something that is meaningful, something that is tangible, something that is compact, something that can tap into let's say a lower barrier, but also can provide safety when it comes to having these conversations. And
Mhm.
I wanted to leave something impactful behind for everybody. And for those of you who don't know, I'm neurodivergent. So my mind sometimes takes me to places where be afterwards I'm just like, what did I do? I had the same with the summit, right? I went beyond my scope of what I thought that I could do. I went beyond that, and the same thing happened with creating this Amplify DEI cards. And what I noticed in the work field, in workplace, is that oftentimes when people try to have, try to have courageous conversations, they don't, first of all, they don't create a code of conduct. Or code of conduct is a way that we mutual agree to disagree, or we mutual agree to respect, and we mutual say
Mhm.
that everything that is shared within this meeting is some kind of a Vegas rule. It stays here and it doesn't go outside of this space. But also understand that it's not always easy for people, especially those who have been triggered or have been traumatized due to the different related isms that plays in the workplace, that it's not always easy to address personal challenges, right? Because maybe the safe isn't space, or maybe we are not doing enough, or maybe we are staying below above the iceberg, and
Mhm.
below the iceberg or below the water near the iceberg there's a lot happening for people. So that's where this come from. And I created two, I would say two recipe card decks, where one is for the individual. So one is for you as an individual, where you can host and facilitate conversations with family, with friends, with people who are close to you. And there is the other one, the blue one is created for the workplace, right? And the funny thing is, not many people know, but the blue one, this how do you say, this scarf head wrap, is the creation, it's the underlying creation for the background. So it was really zoomed in to create the background. So it contains a lot about me. Also, you will see the Vivianisms between the card deck, because I wanted to create a playful, but I also didn't want it to be, an only an African thing, right? It's about cultures, your self culture, but also team culture. And together with your team, you can define your own DEI recipe so that you can create inclusion or amplify inclusion in the workplace.
Yeah. Do you know, I didn't know that about the colors and how that, yeah, how you blended that in. But one thing that, and I don't know whether or not people will be able to
Yeah,
see this
yeah, I
clearly.
can definitely show that. I can definitely
Yeah.
show that.
Can you show
So,
that? Okay.
I think it's no. Let me see. I thought that I added that. So there is an element. No, I haven't added it. There is an element
Okay.
on the cards where you can see a little bit of the Vivianism. So let me enlarge Mary Jane so that you can see them. Yes. For those of you who don't know me by now, my way of training, I always warn people with the fact that I will mention food, right? And with creating these cards, I wanted to create something meaningful where people will feel and see the intensity. So there is an intensity of mild, which represents paprika, spicy, which represents jalapeno, and Scotch bonnet, which represents hot. And Mary J, when you look at the colors, can you show
Hmm.
the colors as well? So the colors, the categories are unaware, aware, and actionable, right? These are I'm inspired by the inclusion continuum, where these elements are also there as well. Mary
Yeah.
Jane, what about you? Because what do you want to share regarding the card deck?
Well, you know, I was especially thinking as I'm going to be heading to the U.S.
Mhm,
In less than 2 weeks,
mhm.
and there is even in with my family members that
Yeah,
it's sometimes difficult to have these conversations,
yeah.
and I sort of got triggered a week or so ago because Vivian, I've had these cards for a while. Um, haven't used them, in the workplace or like in any of our facilitations. But I thought I'm going to bring some of them and see if I can't get this conversation started. And it made me realize that we're missing this element in the facilitation that we're doing
Mhm,
by not bringing this out. So this is why I said, let's have this conversation because we know it's really challenging for people to have these courageous conversations. And
true.
we often don't even think of what kind of questions could we ask. So you've got two examples on the screen. What would you say if you could talk to an external stakeholder about DEI? What is hurting inclusion within the team? If you start this conversation with a team, with the parameters that you explained, in the sense of creating it's a safe place to have these conversations. And then I think one of the things that I've learned really and has had tremendous impact for me on this journey that I've been on the past couple of years, that is that we often we might say something with a good intention,
Yeah,
but
but the
not
impact is wrong.
realizing the impact that it's having, that the impact isn't what we were expecting. And it's being able to have, in a safe environment, someone also be able to reflect that back to you so that you can then start to realize that it's not necessarily it's not the words that are coming out of your mouth, but it is what kind of impact do they have on the individual you're speaking to. And it's
Exactly.
becoming that aware, and then being able to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, sincerely, this is not what my intention was. And then having that dialogue, how could I have done this better? All right.
Yeah,
So being vulnerable. And I think the
yeah.
cards do this. The cards allow us to have these kinds of conversations.
Mhm.
And then Vivian, I just started exploring recently, the QR codes and the videos that are behind those QR codes. And just so not every card has a QR code, but if it does, then there's additional lessons to be learned from that card by the video that you've put together on that particular card. Yeah, I think that it's an amazing tool and it's underutilized. So I'm really hoping that we can get the word out through talks like this and introducing them, making
Yeah.
time for this.
She threw me under the bus last week. Most of the times, we Mary Jane is I see her as my dear sister, and oftentimes we challenge each other when we are going through stuff or when we are how do you say it? When we keep each other accountable, but also we empower each other. We are
Mhm.
cheerleaders for each other. And she confronted me like, you haven't talked about these cards that you created. And I'm just like, oh, you're touching a sensitive point. And I said last week, I said yes to me having that conversation and me having that conversation with Mary Jane as well. These cards are created from a place of love. So I'm just going to show my hands, right? So that you can see the size of my hands and see also the card itself. It's very big. It has to be very big. It's also very sizable as well. Yeah, I have big hands. So as you can see, they are big cards, but also these cards are valuable because you can play them. You can facilitate I don't believe it's playing cards. It's a facilitation card where
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
have a conversation about, for instance, on my card, it says, name a DEI commitment your organization has made, right? This could be a whole topic. This could be a whole conversation for you to have that. And maybe it's a conversation that you want to do once per month. Maybe it's a conversation once per quarter. Maybe it's a conversation that once per year you want to do that, right? It depends totally on you. But I wanted to use the card, or I created the cards in a playful way. I also collaborated with an L&D, a learning and development designer, who challenged me to design beyond. And that's where the QR codes come from, right? I don't want
Mm.
people to have the conversation and dig into their Pandora's box to have that conversation. So there are certain topics like what is inclusive leadership, but also on the card that I shared before, and these are dummy QR code. This is a dummy QR code, by the way. There is a there's a short movie about external stakeholdership, right? So um, all these cards, or the majority of the cards, have a QR code, and the shortest one, the shortest micro video, it's 30 seconds. And the longest one, I guess it's 3 minutes or so. So within a short time, you get the opportunity to learn about a topic and have a conversation about that, right? So I see Dion Johnson. I see you. I see you. I see you reacting. So thank you, Dion, for including in this conversation. So yes, challenging is challenging,
It's
and
challenging.
thank you also for the nice compliment as well. Yeah, the cards are with a twist of my headscarf, right? So that's where they come from, and I made sure that also another thing to amplify equity. Oftentimes when collaborating with other people, right, it's very, I would say the majority would collaborate with a man. That's how we are presumed, that's how we are conditioned. I wanted to make sure that every person who I collaborated with this card deck is a woman. I collaborated with Mary Jane when we went through the questions. Right, I collaborated with Marcia Goddard. Collaborated with Anita Abaiza as well. Collaborated. The designer is a woman. The person who's doing the person who challenged me with the learning and development questions is also a woman. Right. I want to amplify equity in so many ways that you don't often see women in the foreground being visible creating these cards. How many card decks can you say that were created by a woman of color, were created by a team of a diversity of women, right? How many times that you can say that? I don't think that there are that many cards out there. And also the last comment, yes, these are definitely powerful prompts. Yes, you can use them playfully, but like I said, there are some cards that are peppery, right? So I'll start with the Scotch Bonnet card, and that is this one. Let me highlight this. So this one is Scotch Bonnet, and let me take a peek at the color. I don't know all the colors at hand, or can you help me with that color? It's Scotch Bonnet. Oh yeah, it's actionable. So it's hot, it's spicy. No, it's hot and it's an actionable card. And it says brainstorm a piece of DEI with your team members. Brainstorm a piece of DEI advice with your team members and share it with the board members of your organization. How many people do that? How many people take the opportunity to have courageous conversations with their board members and share something valuable? I mean, when I come in, I facilitate. I don't know the culture. The people know the culture. So with the work that I do, I always involve the people because they know the culture, they know the solutions. But oftentimes we forget it when we are working for a company. We forget that we know the solutions, right? So I try to combine the different stakeholders with each other so that they share what they know or what they think that are valuable. Mary Jane, what can you share more?
Well, I first of all, I was on mute. I didn't realize, but when you read out the card and about share this
Mhm.
with the board members, uh, I thought, ouch, that's definitely uh, a Scotch bonnet
Yeah,
pepper.
it's a Scotch bonnet, but see the Scotch bonnet as a feed forward. I recently got reconnected with this word. Instead of seeing
Hmm.
it as a challenging feedback, see it as a way of feed forward.
Yeah, it's a good reframe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one here as well. And what is hurting inclusion within the team? What action
Mm,
can the team take to prevent this?
yeah.
And so, again, just these kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And on the self, the what would you say to your younger self when it comes to DEI? And Vivian, I had shared this with you with your first summit in 2020. You had
Mm-hmm.
asked me this question,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, oh gosh, what would I have shared with my younger self? That's going back quite a few decades for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but and it stuck with me. Is really no action is an action. So by
Yeah.
doing nothing, you are doing something, and that something
Exactly.
is not being supportive. So
Exactly.
it is about taking action. And
Mm-hmm.
so that one question, you know, and you didn't have the cards at the time, but I'm glad you incorporated it into this deck. Um, has made
That
it.
was the start. That was the start, by the way, of creating the card decks because I realized when I created the summit. So in 2020, I created a virtual summit where I think I interviewed at least 40 people. In total, I think that more than 50 people or 60 people spoke at this summit. And in 2021, I did the same summit as well, but with 90 people. So that was really huge, really impactful. And I made sure to interview all the people so that people can get a behind the scenes of who they are. And I noticed that just this one question made an impact on a lot of people. It got a lot of people thinking. That's what initiated me or let catapult me to do these card decks. You're muted. Sorry.
I was clearing my throat earlier, so I forgot
Yeah.
I was on mute. Um, it was definitely a question that triggered in me, or that triggered me. So
Mhm.
I thank you for that, and I'm really
Yeah.
happy that it's in this deck of cards. And
Yeah.
how many? I haven't counted the cards. I mean, there's in each deck. How many questions?
At least 50 for self, and I think it is a little bit over. I think it is 60 for the team card deck, right? So you can divide it, you can use it in every way that you want it. And also if you want some tips or if you need some support in facilitating that, reach out to one of us to have that conversation because there are definitely different ways that you can use them. And also I wanted, these card decks, all these questions are things that I ask sometimes during my training, but oftentimes people forget that eventually it's expensive to hire me all the time, right? So I wanted to create something as a budget to facilitate these conversations yourself. So there is a framework, there is a psychological safety framework so that people, when they want to share, they can share. And if not, they don't want to share, that's totally fine. And then you can skip over to somebody else, right? So it's a very important thing that we need to highlight. I see Dion sharing something. So I'm going to say I am ooh, this is where
Hmm.
my, can Mary Jane to read it out because there are some words there that are
Okay.
not helpful for dyslexia. So
What Dion is saying, she said, I'm a prophetic seer, a woman of
yes,
faith.
that's the
I'm
word.
not an
Yeah.
academic. I'm not a linear thinker. And if I were talking to my younger self, I would tell her, what you know and the way you know things is just as valuable. You can still
Mm,
make a powerful contribution. Your wisdom is valuable. Oh, Dion, that is beautiful. Yeah,
that's definitely
beautifully
beautiful.
expressed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So oftentimes people think that not having these conversations or sometimes the conversations can lead to conflict, right? There are ways to facilitate these conversations. That's why it's important to facilitate courageous conversations within a short cohort, within a short group, and have lay the things on the table. Because if we don't lay the things on the table, then you will turn a mosquito into an elephant within a few weeks or within a few days or within a few
Mhm.
hours. And that is hurting the impact of that is hurting the business impact, because every time that people gossip, or every time that people, there's something lingering in the workplace, it's taking brain space, it's taking physical space for them to be highly productive, right? So that's where the connection is made within maximizing the business impact, because when you create a safe space for people to have these conversations, and for people also to be respectful and agree that you don't always have to agree with somebody else, or agree to disagree, but still be respectful, right? That's something that I do believe that the workplace need to facilitate more and more often. I also understand that there are certain topics that people don't want to address, but then again, you cannot deactivate elements of yourself and show up in the workplace, because that means that you're masking. That means that we are not inviting you to bring in your whole self, or elements of you as well. So we have to be very cautious when we say that. I'm just going to turn on the light, because all of suddenly it's a little bit dark in Amsterdam, so I'm going to stop my cam. And Mary J, can you continue, and then in the meantime I'll turn the lights on.
Yeah, yeah, sure. One of the videos that I looked at this week from Vivian's cards is on unconscious biases, and I think what I like about it is it gives a really simple explanation of how our brain works and what. These micro videos that you have as extra lessons
Yeah.
are are also really powerful. And you've got some of the images here from the videos. Yeah, yeah. Ik vind het, yeah, yeah. Ik vind het.
Why are you
I'm
talking
finding
Dutch?
Dutch. Yeah. I'm finding that it's powerful, just
Yeah.
powerful images, powerful, short, sweet, to the point.
Hmm.
Like for example, how our brain works. The kind of thinking fast and slow,
Yeah.
and how we make snap decisions, and that's where unconscious biases also can be dominant in that area.
Hmm.
Uh, or the way that our brain acts in certain situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So I just
think
want
I
to say
think
that, sorry,
no, go ahead.
I just want to say that, some cards contain a QR code, right? So,
Yeah.
like I showed, like you see in this image, that some cards contain a QR code where you can easily scan and go to that video. So I'm just going to name the videos that I have in this image, right? So what is inclusive leadership? What is active allyship? And how can you use that at work? Calling out versus calling in, right? And I try to be playful with the images so that people can make a connection regarding the topic as well. You see here a bird screaming, calling out, but you can also do calling in. Learn about the different five isms to build a more inclusive workplace. I also have Orlando's growth mindset movie, fostering a sense of belonging in the workplace, DEI topics, what is psychological safety, and the unconscious bias framework. These are just a few of the videos that I have in place connected to these cards, and you get them for free when you purchase these cards, right? So this is free access for you to use in facilitation for your conversation as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I really do hope that as a result of this conversation, and now that we've got it front and center, that we're going
Yeah,
to really move on creating some action around these cards,
yeah,
because they are valuable.
yeah, yeah. So these cards are, the majority are open-ended. It's about ways to remove barriers, but also we don't talk enough in at work. We are working and we are talking about work, but we don't bring that element of vulnerability when it comes to the workplace. And also, we don't discuss them that often. And these cards are, let's say, conversation starters, or maybe conversation
Hmm.
enders. I don't know how you want to use them, but conversation starters to have a meaningful conversation about how you can craft your diversity, equity, and inclusion recipe for your organization or for your team or even within your household, right? So what can you address when you're having that conversation with fellow members or fellow family members as well? Thank
Hmm.
you, Dion. She's leaving. I have to go, but congrats on the cards. I'll tell people about them and
Oh,
cheer you on.
wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Dion, for
that's
being
that that's what I was hoping to achieve in this,
mhm,
that they'll get some momentum and make the impact that I know that they can
mhm.
make. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Let me be spontaneous. And um, I am sharing this now, keeping it open for the upcoming 2 weeks. I'm going to give away two card decks in the upcoming 2 weeks. However, I am going to ask those who want to participate in the contest, ask a question regarding the card deck, something that will pique my interest or something that will pique Mary Jane's interest. And then within the 2 weeks, so know that this conversation will be summarized. And I think I'm going to schedule it so that it's live next week, Tuesday, upcoming Tuesday. But I'll make sure to also reshare the context and give away the card decks. So
I love spontaneity.
I love it as well. I love it as well. So I'm giving away one self card deck and one team card deck. And ask me a question, challenge my way of thinking, so that we can see who is going to join in this challenge.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Vivian, I'm really glad that we had this conversation, and yeah, let's see how we can propel and move this forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use them more often. I have been using them in the solo workshops, right? I haven't been using them in the virtual reality workshop, but
Hmm.
it's definitely something that you challenge me to to include, so that we can continue the conversation much more further. Yeah.
Yeah, be great. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching or participating. And if you're watching the replay, again, the let's say that upcoming 2 weeks. So let me put a date on it so that it's sure. Everybody who shares a question or challenges us with the question and tags us as well before the 22nd of June can participate in this contest.
Vivian, I know that with the micro videos and so the micro trainings that you offer us with the QR codes, that
Yeah,
the value is quite extensive. But can we put a price tag on the cards? Can you share what the
yeah,
value of the cards? Because I think
yeah.
that's important for the audience to know.
You mean the physical value or?
No, no, the actual monetary, like what if they're going to buy these cards from you?
Yeah,
Because I think
okay.
it'll be a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. So the card decks are about, I think it's about 55 or 54, somewhere there. That's the pricing. And if you want to know more, just reach out to me. There is also a volume discount available when you want to learn more about the pricing as well, and see what we can do from there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you as well. Thank you as
It'll
well.
be live for me from the US in July when we have our next conversation, but I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise, Mary Jane. And again, if you have any questions regarding the work that we do, so Mary Jane does well-being, and she's also an ageism advocate, and I'm an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have different tools or different tools in our toolkit to facilitate, for instance, a conversation, facilitate a workshop, facilitate a training. Don't forget to reach out to us. So have a good day, and I wish you well today. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.